Welcome back to Bombastic Nation and Ting and Ting and Ting. I'm Mr. Giant and I'm back with some more vibes for you. Yes, you know what I mean? And hey, I got my drink. Fruit smoothie, all your fruit smoothie. You know what I mean? Some bananas, some strawberries, some pineapples, a touch of ginger. Just to give it a little oomph. Anyway, thank you all for commenting and suggesting stuff for me. This one was suggested a while back, and it was like, oh yeah, I have to react to this one. So I'm reacting to it. And this one is called The Life-Changing Journey of Being Selected as a Gurkha. And this is by Forces TV. I'm going to put the link in the description. Go check them out. Now, let's see what this is all about. You know what I mean? Somebody had told me about the Gurkhas there, and I should check them out. And apparently it's people that join the U.S. Armed Forces, but they are not from, not the U.S. I'm sorry, the British Armed Forces. Rewind there, the British Armed Forces, but they're not from Britain. So let's get in there and see what this is all about. Let's YouTube and simmer.
This is Gurkha class of 2019. Trainee soldiers, the biggest intake to set foot in the UK in over 30 years. Most are just teenagers, and their journey began thousands of miles from here.
Oh, so it's a south, you know.
Small nation wedged between India and China, the mighty Himalayas running down its spine.
Okay.
It remains one of the world's poorest and least developed countries, and for 200 years, the British Army have recruited some of its strongest young men.
Okay.
With the blessing of the Nepalese. Every year, 10,000 apply to join, pledging to fight and potentially die for a country and a queen on the other side of the world. It's a friendship like no other, a British Foreign Legion over 200 years old. With the UK's crisis in recruitment, we need them more than ever. But how do you find the very best Gurkhas? How do the British Army protect them from the corruption so rife in Nepal? And once in, is it all they dreamed of?
This is going to be interesting. Britain's Nepali warriors, okay, from Nepal, okay. Cool.
The first stage of selection for the British Army takes place each year in September, one in the west of Nepal in Pokhara, and one in the east, here in hot, sticky Iran. Young men from all around get up in the early hours and travel miles to be here for a chance of a job in the British Army.
Today we got
you look scared.
District, that's Gurkha, and we got 5 Tarai districts. Normally, they're farming background, especially Tarai district, they are farming backgrounds, and hilly district also farming background. But nowadays, most of the boys from the hills do come down to the cities, near cities, for a better education, like or pretty better facilities as well.
This year, the recruiting campaign was bigger than ever before. They advertised on every one of Nepal's 72 radio stations, and the recruiting officers, retired Gurkhas known as Galawalas, travelled to all corners of the country, gathering young men together on football pitches, tennis courts and cafes. They modernised their website. Potential recruits, known as PRs, could even email Deputy Head of Recruiting Major Sandy Nightingale personally, and they did.
I do get quite a few emails from PRs asking some quite various questions, from are my teeth okay with photographic evidence to can women join this year? What we're trying to do is dispel the myth that only certain Nepalis can join the British Army. It's still amazing to me that people think it's only certain castes. People think that you have to be rich. People think all kinds of things that are all wrong. We will take anyone who's good enough. We make sure there's a British officer on every single stand as well, just so no one can think, oh, I'm a Gurung, he's a Rai. Maybe he's going to give me a worse mark.
There are 125 castes or ethnic groups throughout Nepal.
Wow.
Historically, Gurkhas came from just 4 of these groups. Over the years, the army has succeeded in reaching more diverse sectors of society, in part thanks to its dedicated team of Gulawallas who go out in tireless search of the best young men. This year's newest and most baby Gulawala, aged just 45, made a dramatic entrance, bringing in record numbers from the east.
Wow, I'm really enjoying my job because I want to do something for my countries, the British Army. Everybody know in the world, this is one of the best army in the world.
Due to the searing heat, the 800-metre run has become the first test of the day, and the locals have turned out to cheer the boys on.
It's like an event.
With the futures of so many potential recruits resting on the selection process, there is no room for human error.
Every single score that's written down gets checked by someone else. And I personally will check every single score of those who are selected. Then the Chief of Staff will check every single score of those who are selected. In order to understand fairness, you have to understand Nepali society generally. Nepal is a country where people pay money to get just about everything. And therefore, for us to kind of display ourselves as being free, fair and transparent, we have to go to huge lengths to convince people that that's the case. We'll tell them not to pay money to anyone to get into the British Army.
Similarly, in the exam hall, every question must be unique. By 3 p.m, the test paper will be in the local bazaar, being sold for a few rupees.
Well, writing the papers is extremely difficult. We do keep them under strict lock and key, and then in order to generate those papers, to proofread those papers, to proofread them again and again, because if there are any dramas on the day, it is unfortunately a cohort of young boys who are going to suffer, and we do not want that to happen.
One focus of this year's campaign has been to filter out potential problems early to avoid wasting recruits' efforts, emotions and money. Major Nightingale has introduced a new test to regional selection. Hyperextending elbows, some call it noodle arm, is an immediate fail, so this is now checked early.
Wow.
Today, if the recruits fall short on anything, they head straight to the dreaded Chowtari and then home.
These boys will give everything to try and get into the British Army. I'm not saying that a British soldier is not equally motivated to join the British Army, but the difference with these guys is their whole families put pressure on them to join the British Army. If they get into the British Army, their whole family's life will change forever. And that's the context that we're working with. 1456 Nishchal. 1460 Praswal. 1468 Pradeep Kumar.
Didn't make it.
For some of today's young men, the news is devastating.
1499 Sugam. 1500 Sunil.
The recruiting staff are very protective of them. They won't allow anyone to speak to the potential recruits. Today is too important. The chosen few will be invited back to selection in January, where they'll compete for one of just a few hundred places. Only 4% of the 10,000 applicants will make it.
Wow. Rigorous deselection process, you should call it.
Gurkhas have been part of the British military for over 200 years.
Wow,
Ever
did not
since
know
the
that.
Nepalese War, when the British were so impressed by the fighting skills of their enemy, they struck a deal to recruit them when the war was over. Since then, they've become one of the most feared units of the British forces and fought in every major conflict. The politest of soldiers, the most ferocious of fighters. Can today's recruits uphold a reputation centuries old?
But that have to be scary. It just has to be. You know what I mean? Just as a simple immigrant, leaving everything to go somewhere else. Imagine leaving everything to go somewhere else, but on a specific mission that's life and death. I mean, that's got to be some scary stuff. You know what I mean? And I mean, it happens for even the soldiers that are native to the country that is in the war. But coming from one country to fight for another country, which happens in all the time, but still, I mean, these are boys. You know what I mean? And gotta be brave to do that. Gotta be brave to do that. Not knowing, bruh. Phew. Crazy.
South of the Himalayas and west of Kathmandu lies Pokhara, Nepal's second largest city.
Thank you for flying with Yali Airlines. Namaste.
It's the gateway to the Annapurna mountain range, a favourite spot
Beautiful.
for trekkers. But it's also home to final selection for the British Gurkhas. It's here that the recruiting team must choose once and for all who will become the future Nepali warriors. They've already been selected as the best of the best from their regions. Now they must undergo even more rigorous tests, not least of which is the infamous Doko race. The race involves running up a mountain in the Himalayan foothills with 25 kilos of sand in a basket strapped around the forehead.
It is our identity as a Gurkha and carry a Doko. Like we got the British Allied Force, like the Para, they got their own specific training. Like the commandos, they have got their own selection, and this is unique for the Gurkhas.
The day before, the sand is meticulously weighed and the Doko baskets carefully laid out. Each recruit must prepare his own.
In case of raining, they are covering their blanket by plastic. In case of rain, they will be heavier than usual weight.
And why the blanket?
Blanket because this one is quite rough, so they may scratch their skin at their backside.
How hard is the Doko race?
It is very hard, very hard.
The Doko race was only introduced in 1989. Before that, most of the young men grew up in the mountains and did this daily. There was no need for a test. At 5:45 a.m, the potential recruits leave camp, gather their Doko baskets, and when enough light has risen,
Hello, finishing point, this is start point, over.
the race begins.
Yes, sir. Okay, group number 1. Blue, figure 34, stand by, go!
And it's tough as a nature of the event because it is uphill from start to the end. So my tips for the boys is do not give up. Keep going and never look up. If you look up, obviously, your weight pull you towards the ground and pull you back. So always bend down and keep going up.
There's a dog in the mix. Is the dog getting recruited too?
It rained the whole night and boys were awake this morning. Their Doko was awake. The terrain itself is difficult, uphill, the steps and stones, boulders, and the puddles.
No time for water stops. The recruits must complete the course in 46 minutes.
Ooh, they have a time limit and thing, boy.
Immediately. At the top, it's time for a well-earned breakfast and relief at last. The descent is less painful, the boys singing as they go.
I don't know, man. Going down is usually harder for me.
It won't be long now until they know what their future will hold. It's the night before results day for the potential recruits or PRs from the west of Nepal. And to ease the nerves, the recruiting staff has suggested they put on a show. Western Idol delights the judging panel. It's clear that West's got talent. The next morning, it's a different story. The young men must now say their goodbyes. If successful, they're unlikely to see their newfound friends again. Many will be heading home. In a few moments' time, they'll be invited into a room one by one and told their fate.
We see a massive spectrum of Nepali society. You know, we have people from very, very poor backgrounds who are orphans. You see everything in that room, which is why we don't allow you guys to go in there. It means so much to them to get in because
You know, that's totally understandable that somebody's gonna do this, and especially if they're poor. You know, it could be a way to get out of there. And I guess, generally speaking, armies are like that all over the world. You know what I mean? A poor man could go into the army and make a life for himself. You know what I mean? And actually be successful if he stick with it. Where I live here, in a place called West Virginia, there's a lot of people that go into the army. There's a lot that come out. I have a couple of friends who actually, co-workers for that matter, one went into the Air Force and the other one went into the army, I do believe. And he's still in the army, but I think it's this year or next year is his last year. And the other one in the Air Force was living in Germany for a while. If he hadn't joined the Air Force, he wouldn't have traveled. You know what I mean? And they both talk about going to university after they finish. You know what I mean? So it gives them a head start. So it's totally understandable that these kids from a poor country could see the benefits of doing this. You know what I mean? They're possibly going to get to travel, possibly going to get an education out of it, even a career, because some of the leaders, as they say, they are former retired Gurkhas. So, you know, it's quite understandable that they're going to do that. And it's so important to them because then they're helping their family. And for a rich kid, that's giving more prestige, you know, come back, you know, said he's been in the British Army, which is pretty much what they will be. So he'll get even more prestige on the way back. So it's understandable why they're going to do it.
You guys to go in there, it means so much to them to get in because a lot of them might have gambled everything on this. And, you know, it's quite a raw environment, actually.
Yeah, hard for you emotionally.
Yeah, well, I think everyone.
Sorry about that noise. That's the doorbell. I have a landlord that installed a doorbell that rings. There's 2 apartments up here. The doorbell rings in both apartments instead of just one. You know, one bell for the other. So whenever the neighbor gets people and they ring the doorbell, I hear it too. That's one reason why I tell my friends, text me when you come to the bottom, don't ring the doorbell, because it disturbs the other tenant. But it's quite obvious I don't get that same consideration.
And, you know, it's quite a raw environment, actually.
Yeah, hard for you emotionally.
Yeah, well, I think everyone, really. You know, we are obviously emotionally invested. It's impossible not to.
The minutes tick by painfully. The staff of Gurkha Company from Catterick survey from above. If the recruits are successful, they will bound up the stairs at 1,000,000 miles an hour before anyone can change their minds. There, they will become part of the British Army, and it's over to Gurkha Company to turn them into soldiers. Amongst the candidates is 20-year-old Madhav Karki. This is his 4th and final attempt, and his last chance to get in before he turns 21 and can no longer apply. Everyone is nervous. Outside the gate, the families wait, willing their sons not to appear through the railings. For those who've been unsuccessful, there is next year, if they are under 21 and can afford to make this journey again. If not, life will have to be very different. As Madhav Karki appears through the door, it looks to be good news.
I'm feeling very excited and I feel like I'm in the moon. So it's my dream became true. So
you made it.
No one in my family, they are in the army. I mean, I'm the first guy in the British Army right now.
You must feel so proud.
Yeah, yes ma'am.
You're in the British Army, how does it feel?
It's my happiest moment of my life.
Really?
Yes. It's my dream come true, ma'am.
Have you tried before?
Yes, ma'am. This is my second year, ma'am.
And you remember what it felt like last year, so this must be so special.
Yes,
I'm very happy, man. Hello, Dai.
They're very
First
respectful
thing the
young men.
boys are allowed to do is phone home.
We give the boys 4 phone calls throughout the selection process. So after each stage, so after the medical, after the physical, after the education, and when they're selected, they get a phone call. And that's basically so their parents hear from them first, so no one else can sort of play games and say, oh, your son's nearly there, but I'll get him in if you give me some money. So it's to prevent that kind of thing.
Wow.
And of course, it's nice that their parents...
Corruption, even getting that vibe.
Sad when the parents don't pick up and they're waiting agonizingly for their parents to answer the phone.
Hello?
I just called my father. He's just crying the other side of phone. They're so happy. I know.
My room, ready for departure. Imandari for departure. Which number?
With their new recruits assembled, Gurkha Company waste no time. The boys' own clothes will now be sent back to their families. They'll need a whole new wardrobe in the British Army.
They have to get all their kit and equipment, so it's like a big Christmas day. So as you can see on the table, they are the Christmas father, and then they are getting a bunch of bag. We don't know who's gonna be selected, and we don't know the sizes. So now we'll take them to the room, and then if there's a big or small, we try to sort it out within the group.
It's like a big swapping session.
Yes.
And inevitably all the big guys will end up with a small kit.
Yeah.
Next up, a trip to the barber and the tailor.
You feel like you are a part of our army. Without reading this source, you don't no longer see me here.
What was the hardest part of selection for you?
For me, it was 2400 meter running race, BFT. Because since I'm a grown up all in the city, I haven't run that much. So for me to pass only, it was very hard. But I have trained hard with my friend. Then I have succeeded and passed.
The new recruits are inoculated, fitted for their Virtus body armour, and measured for their civvy outfits known as the mufti. Camp quickly becomes awash with ironing boards and boot polish. And mirror space.
Wow, look at them. In the new uniforms and thing.
The recruits keep none of their old belongings. Everything is new.
Gurkha tie. This is a special tie. You can't find. I don't think you can find it in. We cannot buy it. We cannot buy it. Yeah, it's a specially designed tie for Gurkhas. And it's used only on special occasions, I think. Sample. Soaps. We have our razor kits. Usually the Mughals don't really grow mustache. Mongolians
don't really have beard or mustache. It's very rare in our case, man.
The exciting I am because son is always better than father because of the time they improve. So this intake will be better than last intake straight away. Son is always better than father. My son will be better than me straight away.
पछाडि चाहिँ हात राख्दाखेरि चाहिँ तिम्रो चाहिँ मेक स्योर तिम्रो चाहिँ यो पाम चाहिँ क्रस गरेको हुनु पर्यो हुन्छ अनि यहाँनिर चाहिँ कुनै खालको चाहिँ स्लिट हुनु भएन.
One of the most important new challenges this week is drill lesson 1. In a few days' time, they must parade in front of dignitaries and their families, and everyone wants it to be perfect.
Make sure front rank चाहिँ make sure के हो तिमीहरु चाहिँ 45 डिग्री एंगलमा चाहिँ हेरेको हुनु पर्यो बुझ्यौ फेरि गोर्खा कम्पनी भन्छु त्यहाँबाट फेरि के हो पोजिसन अफ एटेन्सनमा आउने ओके गोर्खा कम्पनी.
It's all about the legacy, our tradition. 15 years ago, I was like them, and then one of my section commander, his name is Captain Dr. Cecil. I am his legacy, so he teaches me everything, how to survive, how to do the things in army. Now I'm doing the same thing to these boys, so maybe after a few years later, so one of these boys will stand in front of this place, and then probably he will say the same. The legacy will go on and on, on and on. But they will always remember us, and we will also remember them.
The recruits have just a week to get to grips with the basics before they fly to the UK.
Yep.
There's a lot to learn, and they'll need their new comrades, their nunneries, to help them out every step of the way. Instructors from Gurkha Company in Yorkshire's Catterick Garrison await the arrival of their new recruits.
Oh yes, everyone is looking forward for this day.
Gurkha Company would have been quite quiet, won't it?
It is, yeah, it is quite quiet when the boys are not in the camp around, and then we just feel lonely when the boys are not in.
Soon enough, they appear, safe into this foreign land, which from now on will be their home.
It's really unknown area when you come into the UK. When I recall my memories, it's exciting as well as a bit daunting as well.
Yeah.
I don't know what's coming up. So a bit excited.
At least they,
on the other hand, you're away from the...
you know, at least they're not like regular immigrants who come in and then it's just dumped into the society. They have a sort of structure going on. So I'm assuming it will be a little bit easier for them because there's a structure. So there's going to be, stages of being introduced to the culture and the society that they all of a sudden are thrust into. So that's kind of cool for them.
So you've got lots of emotion in your mind going through.
It's been a long journey to get here. Years of training, months of tests, examinations and interviews. But this is only the beginning. They will fight for this country and this queen now. A job that will change their own future and the fortunes of their families.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, you can subscribe.
That was really interesting. You know, I have never heard of them. Well, let me think about this. I think I've heard about them before, but never registered. So when somebody commented about them on one of the videos I did, it kind of registered a little bit, but I still didn't know what it was. But it's interesting to see what it really means and stuff like that, and what the process is for them to get to where they are. You know, I'm going to look into them some more and try to learn some more about them and what conflicts they were part of and stuff like that. Well, anyway, man, I hope you guys enjoyed watching this with me. I learned something. Hopefully, other people learn some stuff out of this too. And that's the plan. Now, hope you all having a good day. And continue having a good one, okay? And in the meantime, go out and meet a stranger, understand the stranger. Take care of each other, all right? Cool runnings.